All the war's not going well for the empire. Before we get into the large Iran update, just a quick thing on Dr. Satan, Fauci. You know, his lawyer got removed because he was breaking the rules in Congress. He sat there. He pled the fifth 111 times. They even asked him, "What color's your tie?" I can't incriminate myself. Bitch, you already incriminated yourself in writing. In your diary, you're admitting you knew it was lab grown and so on and so on. You've already incriminated yourself by writing it down. You can choose not to incriminate yourself further, but it's already written. And when Congress pulls you out for a hearing, you can't keep pleading the fifth. If you want to plead the fifth and not explain what you already wrote, then we'll take it at face value, and you have already incriminated yourself in that, and you're going to jail. But Willie, probably not. Not with all the money they made for Big Pharma. So this is just the way our justice system is. It's theater. Republicans knew they were going to get creamed in the midterms, so they found the most evil person they could pick on, which is Fauci, and they're finger waving, and nothing's going to happen. He's not going to go to jail. He's not going to get tortured. It's just it's something to rally the base, and at the end of it, it's pro wrestling. Like, I don't think anything will happen. However, let's not forfeit. Let's have enough public pressure to be like, can we waive the 8th Amendment or rendition this asshole? Send him to Gitmo, like Fauci to Gitmo. I was all for closing down Guantanamo Bay, but since we have it anyway, if anybody deserves to get strapped to a table and dry boarded, it's Dr. Fauci, Dr. Satan. Got any words for Dr. Fauci?
I think he deserves far worse than Gitmo. They should just send him to one of those American military bases in the Gulf.
Hell no, that'd be too quick of a death. I want it to be slower. Old people died alone. I will never forget the orderlies doing TikTok dances and people having to wear a mask and people putting a little hole in the mask and eating dinner. Just disgusting authoritarian monsters. Yeah, I can barely talk about it. mRNA therapy, the vaccine did damage. It didn't stop you from getting the disease. It didn't stop you from spreading the disease. It didn't mitigate symptoms. It did nothing. It was just something you had to have or you weren't allowed to travel or be at your job. And if your job wasn't essential, it got shut down. And they used that to gobble up real estate. They closed down commercial properties who got, fireside sales. And then the essential businesses were allowed to come in and buy them up and get monopolies. It's just, that was the age of pregnant men in paper straws and your little masked lunatics. And he made that up, 6 feet, wear a mask. He pulled that right out of his ass. There's nothing scientific about it. This guy, Razor Fist, with a 0 for an O, made a really funny tweet about trust the science. I am the science. Now the science pleads the fifth. It's just, Fauci needs the death penalty. But it needs to be like death by fire ants or something. That guy has no remorse. He's just sitting there giggling about, I plead the fifth. Like Epstein. At the advice of my attorney. Shut up. Why is he there? He's already written down everything. Like, I'm all for vigilante justice at this point because the system doesn't work. I just read a stat in the UK. Hundreds of 2-strike repeat stabbers not getting prison time. Even though they have a law that says a minimum of 6 months, like they're now saying that jails are full. So apparently you can just get away with carrying a knife, maybe a couple pokes, and you're not going to get any jail time. And it's some 38% are repeat offenders end up murdering people by knife.
By the way, it's exactly like that in America. Like Soros just put all those DAs scattered around the country, and you'll see like a big city like New York City or Chicago, and you'll see that there's a lot of crime, and then it all comes down to the same 200 to 300 repeat offenders. They just keep getting out for some fucking reason.
And it's not just 2 or 3 times. It could be 13 or 14 times. In rare cases, like 30 times. They just don't go to jail.
Yeah.
If jail is actually full, build another one. Add another floor to the ceiling, like make it a skyscraper if you have to. But yeah, they're extraditing the Tate brothers for alleged crimes in the UK from 10 years ago that already got debunked twice. But you can stab someone apparently more than once and not get a day in jail. This is and Fauci, I mean, God, he killed millions. They absolutely did get Obama, though. Like the only thing I can point to he did right was he made gain of function research illegal. So they just moved it to China. And NIH financed gain of function research in Wuhan through EcoHealth. So when he says NIH didn't fund it in Wuhan, okay, you funded an intermediary who then funded it in Wuhan, which means you're still funding it in Wuhan. If I pay someone who pays someone to kill someone, I still paid someone to kill someone. It doesn't matter if you have a middleman. They absolutely paid and conducted gain of function research in Wuhan to get around it being illegal in the United States. And they created a coronavirus and it got out. I mean, you're going to know whether it was on accident, on purpose, whatever. It got out. And they knew what it was. And it wasn't the wet markets. And it wasn't bat soup. It was Fauci and NIH weaponizing SARS-2, COVID. And the hysteria. Did they shut the borders down? No. You could go out to eat and sit down and take your mask off because they knew the mask didn't do anything. If you fart in your pants, can you still smell it? Yeah. Guess what? A virus will go right through a paper mask. You know that. It doesn't, it's just spittle. It's just, and there are memes, you sit down and you're safe. You stand up again, COVID's up here in the air. So at a certain height, then you'll get it. But as long as you're sitting at a table, because they didn't want to be, these rich snobs didn't want to, I can't go out to eat anymore. That would have been too much. So, you can still go to restaurants. They just got to close at 8 p.m. and no bar or whatever. Like, it's, can't piss off the boomers. They actually vote. So that's, Fauci's in the news, but I see it, and Dr. Shiva's pointed this out too. It's political theater. I think Rand Paul is serious, but everyone else around him they're not going to punish him, and Fauci knows it. He can write and say whatever. He can say, I did it, wear a t-shirt saying, I did it, ha, ha, ha. It wouldn't matter. It's like Netanyahu went to Lindsey Graham's funeral. He should have been arrested. Nope.
This is why they will.
Zelensky was there. He's a little murderous bastard. He allowed Ukrainian Jews to use Aliyah to leave. But if you weren't a Jew, you got pressed into service. Think about that.
And then who gets to buy those
go to
lands
the
for very
front line
cheap?
and die for your Jewish leader. But if you're of the chosen ones, Aliyah says you can go to Israel. That's Zelensky.
At this point, what is the Ukrainian fighting for? So that BlackRock can buy the rest of his land, so that economic world forum Jews will just swoop in and just buy everything for cents on a dollar. Their entire industrial
revenge on Russia because Putin put Jewish billionaire oligarchs in prison and exile, and they want to kill them. They want to wreck Russia.
He hasn't put enough
deals with Israel too, but it's not enough. He'll still put Russian interests above Israel, and you're not allowed to do that. He's already a cuck, but 9 out of 10 isn't good enough for these people. They need 11 out of 10. They need you to be like America, like wipe out your own treasury, destroy your own economy, all for Israel, like they're doing in Iran.
Yeah, I frankly won't take Putin seriously until he jails all those Jewish oligarchs that are around him.
Well, I mean, that's the other thing. The other side's the same way. Like, a few isn't enough. You got to get them all. See, these are billionaires. This crap's messing with my eyes. So I'm going to kill the camera. It really doesn't matter what I look like. We got to get into Iran. That's the main topic. I just want to, fuck Dr. Fauci and all that. The Ukraine war is stupid. We've been over that ad nauseum, and Putin's made a whole bunch of mistakes. But let's get into Iran because this is the good news.
Yes. When did we
Talk
last
about
talk,
what you
by
were
the
telling
way?
me earlier today. It's the whole reason we're doing this stream. I was like, oh, we got to say this like live.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wait, one thing with the camera. This is essential. And then we'll get into Iran because I don't do this enough. This is our calendar. Couldn't decide whether front or back because they're both pretty nice. But this is the last day of July, so we got to get it in. And July 31st, what happened? Let's see. Former senior BBC presenter Hugh Edwards pleads guilty to child porn possession. And it was like terabytes of child porn. Oh, yeah, the BBC is run by pedophiles. No
Who'd
big
have
deal.
thought?
Yeah, everyone. There was another BBC presenter that was raping dogs to death. He was having sex with little dogs, and of course they die as a result. Not even Israeli, just the BBC. You'd think if you hear a story like that, you'd be like, Rabbi, no, it was a demented British guy.
You have to be possessed by ancient Hebrew demons to do shit like that. Like, there's no other rational explanation.
Yesterday, it was a whole bunch of these things. Let's see. Yeah, on the 29th, Gaza declares polio epidemic. Like that came back. 30th, Hamas political leader Ismail Haniyeh was assassinated in Iran. Remember that happening. Good news, 27th, the Korean War ends in a ceasefire. Let's see. 26 was apparently Parents' Day. I didn't know that. It was also my birthday. It was Kate Beckinsale's birthday, too, because all the best are born on the 26th. And the day before that was John McCain's Still Dead Day on the 25th. So ain't that nice?
That was such a pleasant surprise. Honestly, like, I didn't see it coming.
Well, on the 25th of August is the actual anniversary of when he died. And it was really funny that McCain dies on the 25th, Lindsay dies on the 11th. 7-Eleven will never be the same. Every convenience store is now better because of it. That means his death anniversary, John McCain dying on the 25th means every Christmas is John McCain's Still Dead Day. And Lindsay dying on the 11th means September 11th will always be an anniversary of Lindsay's death.
Dude, Lindsay's death is going to be very tragic to a lot of gay escorts in the DC area. Like, I love how did you see everything they said about he only had $1.2 million to his name? Yeah, he was spending it all on hookers.
Yeah.
It's
the gay escort, like the I imagine the back line of that funeral of all the guys in the pink ties, like we know what they were. Ladybugs. If you could just get around the ladybugs.
I mean, since the guy had no kids, no wife, nothing, like what would he even spend money on? It was just
same thing Nick Fuentes spends his money on. Fortnite with the cat maids. All right, Iran war update. We got the populated thing. I'll read the calendar quote, and then we'll get into the juicy bits of what have been happening in Jordan, why Saudi Arabia is attacking Iraq, Kuwait and Bahrain getting smacked, the U.S. Patriots, We'll get it onto that. So, kind of a long one. This is about social media. We are being sedated by comforts. Virtual life fools the brain enough to prevent rebellion. This is the whole bread and circuses again. Slowly, societies are being destroyed. In Sudan or Palestine, it is obvious. Everyone can see the bombs and blood. In the UK, France, Germany, and Canada, it's more like a poison. Slowly, at first, the borders were opened up. This was not for just exploited labor, as many Americans think, or for the refugees who do not work at all. In fact, the subjects pay them to live in hotels, and I call them subjects, not citizens, to pay for them to live in hotels for free and be given cell phones and free meal plans at 3 meals a day cooked for them. There is no gain here as they steal, rape, and murder, other than to destroy a culture. It's by design. You have hidden enemies, and they are exactly the ones you cannot speak of without being labeled the monster yourself. You know them by their unique privilege. Or as Strom would say, to see who rules over you, just learn who you're not allowed to criticize. And that is the problem. We've had the dual poison of comfort, which makes people apathetic. As long as they get their beer and pizza on the weekend, they'll be placated enough to just take the rest of it on the chin. People are being stabbed. Your gas prices are going up. It's like $4 a gallon now in America. And it's all for Israel. It's the Klergy plan. It's happening. It's not a myth. It's as real as the protocols. But the war's not going well, and that's bad for the empire. In the long run, it's probably good for the earth. But the United States had an MOU. They had the Strait open before the war started. There was no uranium program that was building a bomb. That's just made up nonsense as a rationale. There was absolutely no reason to attack Iran other than Israel's regional ambitions of land annexation and ethnic cleansing because of their biblical mythology that God gave that land to their bloodline of Jacob. That's what the word Israel means, one who wrestles with God. It goes back to the Jacob and Esau story. And the Zionist movement starts under, it's always been an ideology, but it physically started under Moses Hess, who started building settlements there before Theodor Herzl was even 9 years old. And it's just been ongoing encroachment of land in the West Bank. They've murdered tens of thousands, probably 100,000 in Gaza. They're murdering civilians in Lebanon. The world's just turning a blind eye until the gasoline price went up. And that's going to continue to go up as the Strait of Hormuz is closed. The Bab el-Mandab Strait is closed. They're trying to create a coalition to force it open. And I'll tell you another thing about that. And this guy, he was on with Larry Johnson, Carl something. His name escapes me all of a sudden. I hate these brain farts. But it's the logistic nightmare too. Like if East Asia needs oil enough and it becomes the return is high enough in the market for Canada to send oil all the way to China, then they're going to, and they will pay a premium to get that, which deprives others who used to have that as a source of oil now have less. So it affects the whole supply chain, the whole global market. Anytime a piece gets removed anywhere, you now all have to compete for with a remainder of producers. And East Asia has deep pockets and a lot of people. The oil's still going to go there at a higher price, which then raises the price everywhere else. So don't say, oh, we don't buy that much oil from the Middle East, it won't affect us. That's really stupid. It still affects you.
I definitely think
the less competition there is, the higher the price is. Duh.
Yeah, I definitely think we should circle back to this economic discussion after we talked about the Iranian, the military updates in
Let's
the
talk
region.
about the fun stuff. Yeah, you got the floor on this one. I'm going to give you dibs because I know you enjoy talking about the destruction of Zog.
Yeah, I don't know when we last talked, but I assume it was towards the end of, was it June?
I think we got to talk about, all right, so Iran's been hitting mostly Bahrain and Kuwait and Jordan and then northern Iraq.
Yes, I really want to start this conversation with the funeral and the couple weeks before the funeral. We saw the earliest signs. We saw the earliest signs that the Axis tolerate this MOU because they had other preparations in place. You saw the earliest signs of Yemen beginning to antagonize Saudi Arabia, and speaking of like opening that other front in the Red Sea and ending the blockade on Yemen. And then when the funeral came, it became very clear why Iran was this patient and why it accepted the MOU, like why especially the IRGC types allowed this kind of a joke of a ceasefire to proceed for this long.
And there was a Shia religious holiday at the same
time. Yes, and you know they got all those people from all around the world who came there, many of them very high level political dignitaries and religious figures.
Yeah, I got invited. I didn't go because of the eyeball issue. They're like, no, your ocular pressure can blow up in your face. So I didn't go. I'm glad I didn't, because I would have gotten trapped there.
You know, and I remember when I saw that funeral, I knew for a fact that the war was returning, because that funeral was a declaration of war. It was a huge emotional outpouring. And the Iranians were all extremely mad. I don't know if you saw the videos of them yelling at the foreign minister, because they thought that he was being like compromiser, that he was someone who was leaning on diplomacy too much with people that he cannot trust. But it's
They
clear.
were ready to die.
Yes, exactly. And it was a declaration of war. It was mobilization. And then the moment, even before the funeral, and we started seeing Iran act up more and more, because now they have everything in order. They're very well prepared. America was still drawing on all those oil reserves throughout all that time. And they built up their missile stockpiles even more than they were before. Same with drones, same with a lot of different things. And then we saw those bases start to get hit, base after base, so thoroughly. Kuwait, we saw for the first times like those the video footage. We saw HIMARS systems getting blown apart, and you know those are mobile systems. Like it's clear that the Iranians have maintained like 24/7 surveillance in the entirety of West Asia. They have those satellites in the sky. You know, if you remember, we were talking a little bit earlier about like military bases.
The Chinese system too. They can't shut them down.
Exactly, and Iran launched its own satellites too. Like, what the hell are they going to do? You know, and you know, satellites aren't things that you can just blow in the atmosphere. Like, there's a lot of risk involved, because you blow up a satellite, it splinters into thousands of pieces, and it's gonna come. Like, it's not just gonna fall to the ground. It's gonna stay in orbit.
Effect. Yeah.
Exactly.
Or Kessler syndrome.
Yes. So what do we see? When you look at Qatar, it seems like largely the military infrastructure there is completely over. They talk about the Fifth Fleet HQ in Bahrain. Did you see the funny CENTCOM statement about how like their base is currently operated by telemetry? How the fuck do you operate a base by telemetry? The whole point of a military base is having, you know, your troops and your assets in there getting operated by people, but they don't want to say it's not operational. So they'll tell you something like they're operating by telemetry. Like, what the hell do you think? This is working from home?
Speaking of satellites, they lost their own satellite communication hub in Bahrain.
Yeah, and by the way, apparently they might have lost another one of those THAAD radars. I can't remember if it was in Jordan or somewhere else, but they are just. And the latest reports, I think, I can't remember if it was put by some think tank, but they said there are less than 250 THAAD interceptors left, and there are like about 800 to 900 Patriot interceptors left. These are terrible numbers.
You know, you mentioned that earlier too. The HIMARS are being hit. The Patriot systems are being hit too. They're having to move those because they can't protect them.
Yeah, and we just saw the news today that they sent away all their Patriot batteries from Kurdistan, Iraq. This is major. Like, they cannot even defend their Patriot batteries. Like, when your air defenses need to be defended, like, where do you go from there? And you know, it's so funny.
Missile defense system has to be protected from ballistic missiles. Well, you know, like, these aren't just and then the HIMARS are offensive weapons. I mean, they launch ATACMS, or there's like 3 different types of ammo you can put in them, but whatever. They've been getting smacked.
I do want to point out
these are mobile. And to hit a mobile target is much different than a stagnant target. And Iran is able to tag both, at least at the distance of Kuwait.
And you know, it's even up to the distance of Jordan. Like, it has proven it's able to do that. What's really fascinating to me is what Trump said. He said Iran used to have one of the strongest air defense systems in the world. He said it's no more. My guy, they're hitting your planes on the runways and in the hangars. That's the most effective form of air defense, the one that's delivered on the end of a ballistic missile or a drone. That is afar that you're addressing the root cause directly. You know, you're not dealing with those planes as they're bombing your country. You're hitting them before they even take off. And this is a very qualitative shift in the war that we see that Iran is conducting. So what we see, what's interesting is
the Q-9 Reaper drones. What happened there? I think that was in Jordan.
Yeah, in Jordan, there were apparently at least like 8 of those drones that were destroyed, unassembled. in their hangars. It's very interesting. Where was I going before we just talked about those?
Why did they assemble them there? Why not assemble them then bring them there? They thought it was safe. They're probably making them there to send in.
It's because of the way they probably packaged them, because they have to carry them on those planes, those cargo planes. So they obviously packaged them to have more efficient space. Because you saw all those cargo planes over the last few weeks. They were just loading up a lot of shit into West Asia from like Europe and from East Asia.
I think before jumping to Jordan 2, we were finishing off on Kuwait. Aren't they using generator power?
Yes. Okay, yeah. So I was first talking about Bahrain and how the Fifth Fleet headquarters operate by telemetry. We got past that part. Yes, now in Kuwait, they are forced to use mobile generators because so many of the power plants and the electric grid has been effectively hurt by Iran. And Iran is basically just giving them a little taste of what is to come, because Trump keeps threatening those power plant strikes as if he doesn't realize that all of America's allies in the region are far more vulnerable in that regard.
The age of like forward bases is over. They're stagnant targets. They can't be protected. If they just the thing is, you can't really launch offense effectively without them. You can't only use carriers. The thing it's just, if you can't put them underground, any base that's on the surface is going to get hit with ballistic missiles. There's no way around it. And the problem is with going underground is geography isn't equal. You don't have Zagros Mountains in these areas. Like, what's Kuwait got? Sand? It's not going to work. And I believe, as you pointed out before, how are you going to put a runway underground? You're going to build a big tunnel? What's the plan here? Iran's protected by granite. The Gulf is vulnerable. Israel is vulnerable. And I'm including Saudi Arabia in that too. That's
yes, we have to talk about that. But I do want to mention something about the Americans that's interesting. A lot of people wrongly think that there is some Trump master plan or that there's some military plan in action. And that is not what's happening. The reason why we see a lot of hesitation on the American side is not even to project some sort of deception. It's actually because the military facts on the ground are constantly changing at a rapid pace, moment by moment. And that is why Iran strikes have been far more lethal in their latest iteration. They have clearly gotten a lot of troops. It's just not looking good anywhere, really. And you'll notice how they have increasingly been more reliant on bases stationed out further to the west. First, it was Muwafaq Salti Air Base that's in Jordan, and now we're talking about the Aqaba base that's like right on pretty much the Red Sea, southernmost point of Jordan on the border with Eilat in Israel. So you also see that there's a lot more massing of American assets in Israel. And what is you can only do Iran is effectively increasing the radius around it.
They only have 15 days left at Ben Gurion. If you remember, 5 days ago, they said, first the transportation secretary, the equivalent of whatever he's called, the minister, said you can't put him here. And then Netanyahu overruled and said you can put him here, but only for 20 days.
Yes.
And I think that's because that's about how long the U.S. offensive capacity is all they have left. They don't have standoff munitions. They don't have any defense interceptors, and they don't work anyway. They're going to have a last hurrah, like a Nixon bombing North Vietnam. They're going to really unload with the rest of what they got and then try to negotiate. And I don't think Iran's going to stop. They're going to say, nah, we know you got nothing left. Straight stays.
They have truly butchered it with the way they have went about it. The MOU was actually like a life vest thrown at the Americans, and they were too retarded to realize that. Because, frankly, they had to prove goodwill. That was the best thing they were going to get, and they butchered their only attempt at some sort of diplomacy. So how the fuck are you going to get the Iranians back on the negotiation table after you really screwed with that MOU? You know, you're talking about a country that you hit while you're negotiating with it multiple times in the past. You have to start with trust building measures. And you have done none of that. You have fulfilled nothing of the MOU. You didn't even get the Israelis out of Lebanon. So essentially, it is dead. And I think it's dead for good. And this next round of fighting is going to be the final round because something's got to give. Like this situation that we find ourselves in is just not sustainable. It's not going to keep going this way. And you saw how the Americans, like there was a report that came out of the Navy saying, like, for, you know, top brass were just telling we're telling Trump, like the current bombing campaign is not effective. We are experiencing a lot of damage and a lot of loss. It's not worth it. We either go bigger or we stop. So they stopped for a few days. And for some reason, they thought that just because they thought they can just start and stop whenever they want. They thought that just because they stopped, Iran was not going to hit them. And next thing we know, Iran launched a whole bunch of ballistic missiles and drones on Jordan and targeted all those hangars that were repaired over that period.
Fix the mic, by the way. The default setting keeps switching to what I don't want it to be. And every time I do a stream, I got to remember to go in and switch it. I switched it on Substack, but not StreamYard. So it's fixed now. Apologies, whatever. So annoying.
No worries. Did you hear me?
I heard you. I heard everything. And I think it's because in the past, whenever the U.S. called timeout, they got one. It's kind of like they'd hit, and Iran would respond, and the U.S. would stop, and Iran would stop.
Yes, Iran is clearly not. It's not going to give them that space anymore. And guess what? Now it's Iran's favor that they had bought all this time, and this energy problem is not yet resolved. And Trump just doesn't have a lot of latitude. He has one final hurrah. Like, I struggle to think that the U.S. military is going, like whenever the fighting is going to resume with Israel's involvement, I struggle to think that a rational, I mean, we know Trump is not rational, but I struggle to think they'll give him more than 2 weeks because literally that's all he got. He has enough THAAD interceptors to maybe, if we're being optimistic, intercept like 100 to 150 Iranian ballistic missiles. The Israelis can maybe intercept twice that because they have largely not used their arsenals as opposed to like the American arsenals. So now you have all those bases that are largely going to be concentrated in Western Saudi Arabia, in Jordan, and Israel. And, you know, the Houthis and the Iraqis, they got Saudi Arabia covered. You saw the strikes that happened on those on the ships off the shore of Egypt. That's very interesting. We, like, the Houthis didn't claim it, so we know it's not them.
What was that? A false flag?
I honestly do not think it was a false flag. I think it was probably Iranian covert action because they had threatened that if the war returns, that they are going to expand it beyond like the geography. That they're going to take it to a whole other level. And that was just a sign of that. That was a message they're sending. Because, you know, a bunch of those
Azerbaijan might want to bomb them.
I think Iran has been good with Azerbaijan because I think Azerbaijan took Iran's threats very seriously. And they probably got rid of a lot of those Mossad fuckers who were just festing that land. I mean, listen, Aliyev is a trustworthy person.
All oil to Israel, just like that.
I think the time is going to come for that. You know, I think Iran is just picking its battles currently very wisely. Like right now, they're focused on their western frontiers, and that's all they need. And by the way, you will notice something. The American bombing campaign that happened, I mean, it wasn't so much a bombing campaign, but you'll notice the focus was largely on coastal areas. So I think they were doing something to set the stage for a potential limited ground offensive on some of those Iranian islands. Now, that may not still be the case because, as I told you, the military facts are changing by the day. That might have been their plan when they start conducting those strikes and they focus on those areas. Because you'll notice a lot of those American strikes, they didn't target missile bases. They didn't target like strategic infrastructure. They didn't just go about bombing civilians in Tehran like they were doing in the thousands during the 40-day war. They targeted those coastal areas, and it seemed like largely concentrated in southeastern Iran, around the Bandar Abbas area, because it seemed like they had their eye. You will notice they even bombed those the islands that are claimed by the UAE, Abu Musa and Tumbul Sughra, Tumbul Kubra. I don't know which of those they exactly bombed, but it seemed like that was the American intent. to get some sort of victory that they can claim as grandiose. Like, look, we just got we liberated our Arab. This is what we do to our allies. We liberate their lands. They'll just put some UAE mercenaries. But I think even that, like, got completely blunted by the Iranians. Like, I think they would be just complete. I don't think they are seriously considering that.
Capture islands. I think they were trying to disrupt the communications and radar in that area in an attempt to get ships out of the strait. It's a fool's errand. I mean, there's
well, I think there was more to it than that, because they were hitting, like, there was a certain pattern. Like, they weren't just hitting also those areas right next to the strait. They're largely trying to. Now, I certainly don't think now.
For example,
I don't.
If you look at all the dumb moves they made, like the blockade of the blockade, and they bombed the coastline. It's just so stupid. It's as long as Vietnam. You're trying to hit something the size of a truck. You know, it's 1,000 miles. But they had to do these like civilian military planners are just throwing out like.
By the way, I certainly don't think. I don't even think they were trying to just get ships out of the strait. They have failed. Like Iran, if it once could literally close the Red Sea without the help of the Yemenis.
Like they're doing that to manipulate Wall Street, who doesn't understand war.
There is a lot of Wall Street manipulation,
but we're hitting them now or whatever. Like he's playing market yo-yo for a long time.
But the more he plays it, the more he will get fucked in the end. You know, like he's setting himself up for a great disaster. The bond yields are almost at 5% again. Oil is only going to go up from here. Saudi Arabia now, pretty much the only Gulf country that was like exporting comfortable amount of oil out, is no longer doing that. You know, now they have to circumnavigate Africa, and even then, like, it doesn't.
Oh, it's worse
like they're
because
necessarily
the large
very
tankers
that's really large, like Houthi strikes.
They can't go through the Strait of Hormuz. Or, I mean, sorry, they can't go through the Strait of Hormuz. They can't go through the Suez Canal because it doesn't fit. You need smaller boats. So they're going to have to, not only do they got to go around Africa or up through pipelines through the Mediterranean or something, they got to offload onto smaller ships to even use the Suez Canal. And that affects imports as well. And Iran is taking 100% ownership of imports, and they're discussing with Oman how much to have on exports. But even if the Saudis went northwest with their oil and other goods, all ships are not equal. I mean, the Suez Canal cannot have those giant barges go through. That was something that had to go through Bab el-Mandeb. And the Suez wasn't designed for that because they're like, what's the point? You know, those ships had always gone to East Asia. Why would they go west? Because they have to now. They can't get through. Now, so Saudi's making a move to try to reopen that strait, something the Americans could not do in a 7-week war with the Houthi, Ansar Allah. So that's likely to fail. But out of the blue, and a lot of people couldn't understand this. So my guests had to go in and out, it looks like. A lot of people couldn't understand why Saudi Arabia hit Iraq. Well, the Saudis are claiming that Iraq hit them, that some drones came in and tagged things in Saudi Arabia, so they're hitting Iraq for that reason. But no one claimed those strikes, and the Iraqis really have nothing to gain in doing that either. It's always been tit for tat. So let's see what's going on Telegram. Hold on. Oh, he's I see what happened. All right, I'm gonna add him back. It's just a little he'll be back. There's a battery thing. So I get that. Yeah, just rejoin when you his phone, he was using the phone. So he'll plug that back in or get on a laptop or whatever. I want him to answer the why did Saudi Arabia hit Iraq question if we can. Here, there you go. You back? You get juiced up? I gotta add him, don't I? Let's see. Add to stage. There you are. And that's who's on the grassy knoll. Oh, wait, you're back.
Yes. What was that question you asked in the end?
Oh, so I was just walking through the Bab el Mandeb, and I was talking about how in the Suez Canal, you can't put those large container ships or tankers through there. You have to have smaller ones. So it's not only a logistical problem for distance, like going around Africa or going into pipelines to Europe. You have to change the boats you use too, because the Suez is not designed for the giant tankers. And then I was explaining how Saudi Arabia is either going to try to bust through Bab el Mandeb with a coalition, something the U.S. couldn't do in a 7-week war with the Houthi, and then suddenly they bomb Iraq. Now they claim that's because Iraq hit them with drones first, and they're responding to that. They also bombed Sana'a to prevent a plane from landing. It may have been they had intelligence that the Houthi were about to go into Aden anyway, so they tried to preempt it. But the hitting Iraq didn't make any sense. Why is Saudi Arabia creating a new headache for itself, knowing Hormuz is closed, knowing Bab el Mandab is closed, and now you want to pick a fight with the PMF and PM?
Well, because
PMU.
they are desperate and they don't even know what to do. And like all the points you raised about the
Well, the king's a
tanker
moron.
and Bab el Mandeb are completely true. But they don't even address the most important part. The Houthis attacked the Yanbo terminal, and it's 1,000 kilometers from the Yemeni borders, and doesn't seem like there was anything there to intercept anything. They hit everything they targeted. They hit all those oil wells, like in those different places, like Jizan and Abqaiq and other places, and there was nothing they could do. So what is even like? So the tankers and transporting your oil out is barely
Paul,
your
just a second. For
worried
those who
about
don't know, Yanbu is a city on the Red Sea that is a major port city where the Saudis offload a lot of their goods that used to go through Bab el Mandeb. That's what he's talking about. They hit twice. Continue.
Yes, and so if you can't even use your oil terminal out of which you export all that oil now, since you can't use Hormuz, uh, your last concern really is the tankers and whether they have to circumnavigate Africa. They're just completely screwed. And today we just received reports that Saudi Arabia's economy shrunk by almost 5% in a quarter. And this is why is this very important? Because a lot of those smart analysts that we see on Twitter and those think tanks, they try to make it seem like Saudi Arabia might emerge as the only winner from this war. And these are the ones who relatively were able to export the most oil at the greatest prices and stuff, and their economy still shrunk, and they have a real population. Like it's not like Saudi Arabia is Qatar with like 200, 300,000 actual Qataris. The actual Qataris are probably even less than that, like the Qataris and the Emiratis, they could give a fuck about all those expats and all the slave labor that they have in their country. Like they don't care. Like those guys, their standard living, whatever it is, like, yeah, they'll kick them out or whatever, but they can afford, no matter what, to still support their populations through this. But Saudi Arabia has a real population. I think over 30 million, Saudis. They have their 2030, plan, where that's all now in the bin. Like if their economy shrunk and they haven't even really been hit compared to like Kuwait and Qatar and Bahrain, imagine what's going to happen when the Houthis go all out. And the Saudi, like, are they trying to project?
Well, these are the genius planners that wanted to build a city in a straight line. The line city.
And this is where the Axis is smart. Like Saudi Arabia will get into a defense pact with like Pakistan, like, oh yeah, stop Iran or whatever. But guess what? Those Iraqi militias can hit Saudi Arabia just fine. The Houthis can hit Saudi, and like, what the fuck is Pakistan gonna do? People forget that Pakistan was a participant in the Yemeni war from the very beginning. Thousands of Pakistani troops were on the border with Yemen back when the Houthis were making those incursions.
UAE was part of that war too. They took over Socotra.
Yes, and like nothing they are proposing is new. They had already in the past brought Pakistani mercenaries. Like the Pakistani army was, let's be honest about the nature of that Pakistani regime. These guys are just slaves to the dollar. Their whole country is a hostage to the World Bank. They did all this stuff so that Trump could give them, what was it, $10 billion like cash swap line or whatever to stabilize their currency. they already this Gulf coalition already brought Sudani mercenaries in the past, and they did all those things, and they got nowhere, and they are just going to get
Well,
nowhere.
Epstein was afraid of Khan, but we saw what happened there, and you know, it's hard for Pakistan. Like they don't govern themselves. Same with Lebanon. Like you have Hezbollah, but the Lebanese government is a cuck. I mean,
Yeah, I
it's
mean, with
still
Pakistan, it's a bit different because you have a regime that was literally installed by like the CIA. It was definitely a coup against Imran Khan. I personally don't care.
You know where the Lebanese government sits?
Yeah.
The Lebanese government is such a cuck. They're sitting in Sneeko's lap, who's sitting in the chair at the corner of the bed. They don't even get the chair. They have to sit in the lap of the other guy that's in the chair watching his girl get smashed.
So now imagine if the Saudis are smart, and like I tell them this right now as mere advice, like just concede, just end the blockade on Yemen, get the fuck out of Yemen, and just get out of all this bullshit. You are only
What if Yemen hit them within Yemen? I mean, there's Saudi proxy forces in Aden and Sana'a, for example. They could hit them there and not.
But there is nothing worth hitting in Aden. Like there is just nothing, in Saudi Arabia.
I mean, like assassinate these people.
There are so many of them. Like I mean, essentially,
true.
They have a strategic objective, and it's hurting Saudi Arabia and getting them out of Yemen and to end the siege on Yemen. The proxies will all fall. Why deal with the proxies instead of the source? This is why the strategy failed in Syria, because you just kept fighting those proxies and getting into those wars when you should have directly dealt with the source of the problem. Maybe it wouldn't have gotten this bad. And I think the Yemeni approach is very smart in this regard. They know exactly what they're doing. They knew what they were doing back when they were fighting in the Red Sea under Biden and later on in Trump. They just played it very smart. They know what they're doing. And this war is going to be independent of whatever goes on with Iran, but it's part of a larger general strategy that we see coming to fruition right now. Either we all get to be prosperous and we all get to have access to the global economies, or no one does. And that is only
chat
fair.
Like the cuck's cuck.
Yeah.
I used to say in high school, we had this phrase, I'll make you my dog's bitch, like a bitch's bitch. This is a cuck's cuck.
I'm going to use that. Doing. But,
quick commercial coffee break. Hold on. I did promise the people I've filmed this with I'd show it. So here is another Don't Israel.
No, it's my pillow. God gave it to me.
But I was dreaming about an eagle and a bear.
God, 6 million.
Give it back.
Palantir! I was in the shop getting my bagels, just using my phone, and this Palestinian terrorist, 3 times my size, wielding a knife, came out of nowhere, broke my arm, tried to take the phone that God gave to me. Allah Akbar! Allah Akbar! Well, I was sleeping with my pillows that God gave to me, and I was having a wonderful dream about free bagels, and this Palestinian terrorist, 3 times my size, took the pillow that God gave to me. Besides, I left them a pillowcase. It's a generous offer. They were promised to me 3,000 years ago.
That poor man, he's having a dream about free bagels.
Yeah, sometimes you just gotta challenge your inner theater kid.
that that lady was jacked.
Yeah, I saw that. That was terrifying.
Could breathe fire, apparently. That was fun to make. It got every pillow in that hotel. These are all mine. A generous offer. I hope people got that reference. I left them a pillowcase. That was theirs anyway.
It's like when the Emiratis opened up their country to the Israelis after the stupid Abrahamic deal, and then you just had reports of Israeli tourists like sealing the hospitals clean, sealing the pillowcases, sealing like paintings, sealing
any Israeli that goes in a hotel steals the towels, the shampoo, like they just Israel everything. You know it.
They are just a nation of thieves. Like it is what it is. Like, and they've always been so. And
they don't even think it's wrong. They don't think lying's wrong. They think you're wrong for being a sucker.
Yeah, you know, and if you gotta do something bad, just go somewhere where you're not known, and do it. Don't ruin the reputation of your people. Like they're literally governed by loopholes. That's how.
Yeah, the loophole goblins.
Yeah. This is the issue. Like this is why you can't have a political system that's so litigious the way it is. Like you just have lawyers all over the place everywhere. Like how many senators and congressmen and stuff. This is what they do. They just look into the words and they try to twist them, and this is what they
people like the New York accent. I did the New York. The generous offer is like, besides, it was a generous offer. Makes me hate Yankees more.
Yeah. So now where do
Speaking of which, new Substack is called Lincoln's War, because that's what it was on Substack. Lincoln's War. You can get in there and support the South before it all ends up like Virginia.
Yep. There's no longer
fucking Nova is just DC, greater DC. That's what it is.
Yeah. So where do we see things going from here, basically? Well,
I don't see them doing anything they ought to do. I see them doubling down, doing a last hurrah that will not work. Ultimately, it's going to end up with a one-on-one with Israel. This doesn't end until they end. These Gulf states and stuff, they're all proxies, they're U.S. bases. Obviously, Iran has to mitigate the U.S.'s offensive ability to attack them. When that is pushed out of the way, they will move into hitting the beast itself, which is Israel. And it's got to concentrate on Haifa, because honestly, if you shut that down, that ends it, because they won't be able to import oil and gas.
Listen, Iran is leaving the best for last. I have some friends that I talk to who are journalists, and whenever I talk to them, they love to ask, like, why is Iran...
Oh, they're going to bomb Miami? No.
No. Well, I was saying they keep asking, like, why isn't Iran hitting Israel now? And it's actually good that we got to this topic, because it seems to be a common question these days.
Oh, well, yeah. Let's explain this. Yes. Everyone, they were like, just bomb Tel Aviv. They're like, well, look, strategically, that's not the best move.
Absolutely not, because Iran's main strategic impediment is the U.S. presence in the region, and all its efforts should be focused on that. And if it has the opportunity, like it does right now, to hit the U.S. without having to fight Israel at the same time, it should take advantage of that for as long as it can. And we have seen over the last few weeks how fruitious those targetings have been. They have hit so many important assets all over the region, you know? And that is largely because their tunnel entrances aren't getting bombed around the clock, and they don't have to deal with also bombing Israel at the same time and all that extra stuff. But now...
And Israel hasn't lifted a finger. They're scared.
They are scared, but it's going to come. They are going to join the war. But this is how Trump fucked up by ending the MOU the way he did. He started the fighting back. He got fucked. He got nothing out of... He achieved no tactical, let alone operational or strategic objectives in his hits on Iran. But now what's going to happen? Now Iran has methodically moved from base to base in the Gulf. And when this war resumes, and all the American military assets are largely concentrated in Jordan and Israel, Iran could just focus completely on Israel, because it would have, by that time, Jordan would have been largely devastated. It will still be, I mean, Jordan as a country was created to be like some sort of dispensable shithole. Like it was never ever in history like any sort of country. They just wanted a buffer zone between Palestine and Saudi Arabia, where there is a major Arab population and there are resources. They wanted a failed state whose soldiers are getting paid by literally the Americans and the Israelis to act as border guards for Israel. So Jordan is doing exactly what it was created for, just being
Apparently, Israelis are also paid by the Americans as part of the new NDAA.
Yeah, and they were literally created to basically be to attract bombings and stuff. Like, I mean, for example, even Jolani, for example, like, why do they want to get him to Lebanon? Is he going to succeed there? No, but they want him to attract Iranian missiles. Because at this point they have no interceptors, and do they give a shit about Jolani? Like, they're not setting him up for success. Frankly, they might. I don't even know if he's going to go in at this point after all he's seen. He's definitely resisting it, but he might be forced anyways. And, he will accomplish his strategic objective, which is to eat a lot of Iranian drones and missiles. But if that's the state that they have descended to, you can tell the war effort is going in a tragic direction for the Americans and the Israelis who rule over America.
We have a Randy Fine clip that it's only 30 seconds, but this is August 18th is the race in the 6th district of Florida. If you're there, you got to vote for Dan Bilzerian, but here's a little bit on that fat Jew, Randy Fine.
Randy Fine caught in illegal voting and transgender scandal while he pushes bills claiming to protect children and traditional values. Fine and his wife participate in transgender pride groups that perform for children. He was caught illegally voting for lawmakers. Fine was caught on video hiding behind his desk evading court subpoena and was held in contempt of court. On August 18th, fire Randy Fine and elect Dan Bilzerian, the leader who will hold corrupt politicians accountable. Bilzerian for Congress is responsible for the content of this advertising.
I didn't know
he hid behind his desk. Too bad he's too fat to hide behind a desk.
Yeah, I didn't know Dan is still running over there like that.
Oh, yeah. Randy Fine also blocked financing for the Save America Act that would force you to have an ID to vote in a federal election. You think that's common sense. And so he made a big mistake. He might not get his endorsements. And AIPAC blew its wad on Thomas Massey. They threw in $36 million to get rid of him. They can't do that in every race.
I certainly wish Bilzerian will win and that he's taking this seriously, because it'd be so nice to get rid of that.
He spent like $1 million. He's got door knockers. He's got ads going in Florida. This is very serious. You're not seeing it online because it's not a federal election. This is a local, 6th district. So the money's being spent there. So some people might not have seen it, but trust me, those people that live in Florida, they've been seeing the ads. They've been seeing the radio things, some of which I might have made.
Please send him my regards and tell him that I'm a big fan.
Oh, well, sure. And listen, it's anyone that's not endorsing him over Randy Fine is a coward or a Zionist. There's no reason to not say I endorse Dan Bilzerian. Why not? The alternative is a fat Jewish supremacist that has an Israeli flag in his office.
It's those same annoying freaking leftists always who tend to be those types. Like, Dan Bilzerian is actually a brave man. He's been a lot more brave on TV than the likes of Mehdi Hassan and all those like LARPers and social climbers. Like, he went out there and he stated what the problem is and he was unapologetic. And I respect that, because
and he has more to lose.
He never fell for the bullshit about, do you condemn Hamas? And you see those Muslim LARPers like Mehdi Hassan. Yeah, I condemn Hamas. Yeah, blah, 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 all that shit. You are a coward, and we need it was so refreshing to see that.
I condemn Hamas for not doing it earlier.
Yeah. I love Hamas. I love Hezbollah. I saw this poll that was posted by one of those Jewish interest groups in the US. They're talking about 50% of the Muslim population support Hamas in America, the American Muslim population. Oh, we need to get rid of those terrorists or whatever. It's like, this is pathetic.
They're fighting
ashamed.
terrorists.
Yeah, exactly. I love
the IDF for terrorists.
The IDF are terrorists, and we deserve to have a sovereign country. We deserve to not live under Jewish occupation, and frankly, like, we shouldn't sugarcoat that anymore. And I keep getting police, like, there are
It's like labeling Native Americans that fought against the frontier terrorists. Like,
dude, also
on their land stealing their stuff.
One of the Jews in my vicinity, they got triggered by a certain post that I made that was saying, like, no more Jewish war, simple as. And they were like, every Jew in my life is against this war. You should call it the Israeli war, whatever. The level of first of all, show me all those Jews in your life that are actually anti-Israel, because I don't believe you. Like, I don't believe you at all. Yeah, so they say this kind of shit, and then it's like, they don't see how much it reeks of ethno-narcissism. If we were
anti-war Jews are a name only. They're like, what about Norman Finkelstein? Like, he's an atheist. Like, they're all not actually Jewish. Maybe their parents
plus,
are.
Frankly,
but
I don't even like Norman Finkelstein.
I know, but at least he is against slaughtering Gaza. Like that.
Yeah, I know. That's appreciated, but I'm tired of putting those people at the forefront just because they happen to be Jewish.
I know. It's like, oh, look, here's a Jew that's not a psychopath. Like, that shouldn't be a thing.
It's like
be a unicorn.
We have to clap for them whenever they're not raping and killing children. Like, imagine.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, look, a lady doctor. It's like, yeah. So they make a point of it because it's rare.
By the way, and then even those so-called good Jews, you later on discover, like, they scammed this guy and that guy, or they have some freaking skeletons hidden in their closets.
Noam Chomsky, Epstein associate.
Oh yeah, of course. Noam Chomsky was a big one, and I mean, anyone who followed Syria never fell for Noam Chomsky, anyways. Frankly,
well, Chomsky's divert is they're just the tail of the dog. That it's actually America pushing Israel around. Like, no.
And you see how this is part of, like, a subversive campaign itself. I mean, this is the essence of what typically tends to be controlled opposition. But where I wanted to go with the conversation,
Aaron Mate called me a Holocaust denier. You guy doesn't know shit about me. It's very hard to find a good one, like,
yeah, and then you later on discover that more Christians died in Auschwitz than Jews, and then you later on it's like, the saddest part about the thing is that it didn't happen. Like, just shut the fuck up.
Well, Christians died in Treblinka. I don't know if more died in Auschwitz, but
yeah,
whatever.
But what I wanted to say, anyways, if our government was run by a cabal of Germans who ran our media companies, who ran Hollywood, who ran, like, the economy, like the banking sector, all those different, like,
imagine if all the Federal Reserve chairmen were Chinese and we had a Chinese centric
or Germans. Imagine if anytime we have to mention it, we have to say not all Germans, not all Germans, not all Germans.
Yeah, anytime we're talking about the Russians, we're like, well, not all the Russians. That's understood.
And it's so funny because it's crazy how much of a stigma they have applied to this topic, because essentially, to slay a dragon.
We did it today. We said the Saudis. We're talking about the Saudi government, obviously. Like, oh, not every Saudi Arabian. Like, yeah, duh.
Yeah, and when we say like the Syrians might go into Lebanon, this is not us saying like all Syrians want to go into Lebanon, or all Syrians are Julanists, or whatever. Like, it's just stating a fact, like, if it was Italian mafia or gang or whatever, you would say the Italians or Colombians or whatever the hell it is. But God forbid you say Jew, like that kid who went on Piers Morgan.
Phil Giraldi made this point, and he got kicked off the American Conservative magazine for saying Jews. And it was just in the same ways you'd say Russian, Chinese, whatever.
They want to have it both ways, always. It's a religion when it's convenient for them. It's an ethnic group when it's convenient for them. It's this, it's that. It's a nation of lawyers, and, they are spiritually effeminate people. It's all about the arguing and the gaslighting and all that shit.
I'm getting quoted here. Well, let's get back to the Saudi-Iraq conundrum. Is that where we
Yes,
nailed it?
yes. So Iraq is it's an interesting situation. You got this Zaidi guy who came as a result of some sort of compromise by the pro-Iran Maliki political coalition and the Americans. He clearly, the Americans are trying to build him as this figure who's popular. They helped orchestrate those anti-corruption raids. You know, I mean, clearly the people he captured in those raids were actually very corrupt. Many of them were trying to burn fat sacks of cash for they were getting arrested. They completely deserve to be ruined. But clearly there's a political purpose behind this. You know, they want to build him up as a new sort of popular leader who's not doing this to be on the side of the Americans and stuff. He wants what's better for Iraq, which is, you know, let's get rid of those corrupt politicians. Let's take the weapons from all those militias and resistance groups and whatnot. And, you know,
But
and the
don't you think
Americans
Saudi bombing Iraq now puts the Iraqi leadership in a tight spot where they look like a cuck if they don't respond? So now he has to.
well, it does. Now, the thing is, he's already responded in a very confused way where he's like, oh, you bombed us, and that actually hindered our investigation of what went on, while at the same time saying we are trying to work on not getting attacks out of Iraq to neighboring countries and all that crap. You know, I mean, you saw even the Iraqi intelligence figure who said that it was, you know, Ukrainian intelligence operating out of Iraq and is responsible for attacks like these. Clearly, the Iraqis were playing some sort of, you know, deception, some sort of plausible deniability. But I mean, it is, by the way, it is for a fact true that Ukrainian intelligence operates in places like Iran, Iraq, Sudan, and other places. You know, they are very active, and to give them credit, they're very efficient at what they do. So it's a plausible lie, but a lie nonetheless by the Iraqis. Yes, you are right. Zaidi is in a tight spot, and he got an ultimatum from those resistance groups telling him you have until the end of Arba'in. I think it's about like 9 days, 8 days from now. I'm honestly not quite sure, but they gave him like a 10-day deadline. Like, figure out your shit, figure out how you're going to respond to the Saudis, or we're going to be very mad. So I guess we have to wait until then. He threatened his resignation, apparently, because no one's listening to him about giving up their weapons. Because, you know, why would they exactly? Like, they got Julani right on the west. They are surrounded by potential enemies. Like, the Iraqis are never going to give up the PMU, which literally liberated their country from ISIS. And this is the longest period of peace Iraq has had in like maybe a century. You know, like, Iraq is just that type of unfortunate country that has been at war for most of its history. And even this kind of peace, you notice, is not so much peace. Like, it has a lot of hiccups, like what's going on right now. But he's going to have to make a choice.
Yeah, and it's there are a bunch of CIA bases near Erbil and that area too. And the Victoria, well, the U.S. Embassy is actually a base. I mean, it's called an embassy, but it's bigger than the Vatican.
Yeah,
they've been
just like their embassy in Beirut. It's a huge embassy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not. It's a well, it got lit on fire. It's gonna culminate in the next few months. I mean, America's got about 6 months of dumb bombs and stuff they can use. It's got the midterms and the primaries to deal with. You had some Epstein documents. The judge ordered them to be unredacted. Now they've appealed, so they can drag it out another couple months. Those names are gonna come out. They're out anyway. I put them on Substack. You don't have to wait. I'll tell you who it is. But if you want to wait for the government to admit it, you know, you got another couple months.
We already know everyone by name. Like, there's no even point to the government admitting any of this shit. It's not like, you know, this whole thing was a facade. The idea of, you know, we are a government, we have institutions, we have all those things. Like, we see it. These things only apply on the peasants, you know, the serfs who work like slaves, tax slaves, and no one else really. You know, the wealthy do not pay taxes. Like, they just don't. It's just, frankly, like this country is built to be a farm. And
well, it's like they're talking about the torture video. That's one of the 8 emails. They're talking about the torture video. It's a dude. That's Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayman. We already know. You don't have to wait for the judge to tell you he saw the name in the email. We know that from other sources. They're talking about these other people that, are, I don't know how to put it more, effing kids. They say it in the email. You can't possibly say, oh, we're just protecting victims' names. You can see from the context of the email that is not redacted that a man is talking about having sex with this or that. I like the Lithuanian one and stuff like that. That it's the John who has his name redacted, not the victim. And so it's going to come out. But again, you don't have to wait. I've already put out all the names and who did what, because you could tell without the emails. You could go and ask the victims. You can go and ask the staff. You can go and look at statements that are already made in court in cases like for the JP Morgan case, for example, 290 million paid out to all these victims. You don't have to wait, but it's still important because the plebs aren't going to do all that work. The media ought to be doing what I'm doing. They ought to be delivering, here's who did this and that. But this Judge Sullivan,
who owns the media?
well, yeah, that's the problem. Yeah. Not the little white girls getting raped. They don't own the media. That is why. And they always say, how come Germany's got all this guilt for World War II, but Japan doesn't? I go, because Koreans don't own the media.
That is so true.
Nor do the Chinese. It's someone else. Somebody. It's on the tip of my nose. Yeah. Who knows?
The other thing that I'm really interested in tracking these days is the Japanese economy, because I feel like it's a lead indicator to the global economy. All the excesses that are present in the American economy are even more exaggerated.
Trade is their problem. Is brutalizing the yen right now.
Yes. And now apparently America is now buying yen and selling euros to try and stabilize the yen because they know this could spiral out of control.
No, well, yeah, kind of. That's half right. They're buying yen so that Japan doesn't sell U.S. bonds.
Yes, and they sold so many bonds. Like, it's crazy. And and that's the thing. Like, they can cause a mass sell-off with how much, because bond, it's not even.
She's gonna do it. She sold 30 billion in one chunk in one day, and then America started buying up yen. It's just they need to raise interest rates, and but Mitsubishi's not going to do that. I mean, they went from 0 to 0.5, like 0.5%, but you have to understand that's infinitely more than none. There's at least some interest that has to be paid now, but it's just like all these countries, Australia, United States, like they all took advantage of this yen carry trade, and it's caused massive problems. And it's like, look, you're going to have to sell U.S. bonds or raise interest rates or both. You got to take the bad medicine, and they don't want to do it.
Yeah, and Turkey sold all their American bonds, pretty much all their treasury bonds. But yeah, I think Japan is going to be worth.
Yeah, but Japan owns more than anyone else in the world, even more than China.
100%. This is why I was saying to you, like, I think we have to watch the Japanese economy in the coming time. It's also an economy that's largely dependent on oil from, that troubled region, West Asia.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's still like the 5th or 6th largest in the world. It was second for a long time. So it's bigger than anything in Europe, Germany around the same size, but it's still a massive economy, still a first world nation.
Yes, and that's why it's dangerous.
Per capita, I mean, it's only 125 million people, so they're doing well. People will say, "Oh, you're on the decline," and be like, "Well, yeah, compared to being top of the planet, they're bad compared to prior Japan. They're great compared to you." They're still doing
I mean, they are doing well, but the issues with the Japanese economy is that has a lot of underlying chronic problems that have been set in for like decades. Right now, their debt to GDP ratio is over 200%.
Yep.
Their fertility rate is very low. It's not. I do believe in Japan that it will eventually.
Fertility rates on par with that whole thing. If you look at population density, like the lowest fertility rates, like Singapore.
I don't think their fertility rate is that much of a problem. But what I'm trying to say
is it's like 1 point something percent. It's the same as I mean, not percent. It's 1.6 kids per household.
I'm
What they're doing
surprised
is they
it's that
compare
high.
that to living generations, but people in Japan live to be 100 or more. So they have
Yes.
more of the great grandparents and stuff that would be dead in other areas. So the ratio looks bad. But
Yes,
like
but
Korea's got a problem. Singapore's got a
I
problem.
don't think the
Japan
fertility
doesn't.
rate I don't think the fertility rate is a problem on its own. Sometimes your population is just too much and there has to be some sort of correction. And then that is
You
completely
can't have
normal.
indefinite growth. That
Yes,
is the same amount of land as Montana, but they're about half the population of the U.S. all
yes,
crammed into an island.
this is where it gets dangerous. It's not when they don't have indefinite growth. It's when they have indefinite debt. You know.
The debt's a problem, but the kid thing,
Yeah.
like
Yes. But
the whole
what I'm
Ponzi scheme
saying.
anyway. How are you going to pay for the elderly? Like the elderly should pay for themselves. Isn't that how Social Security is supposed to work? They take money out of your taxes and you get it back later when you're older, but they've spent through that. And so now you pass it on to the next generation and the next
Exactly, and
generation.
now you have
That's the
less and less
problem.
people. You have less and less people in the next generation, and your debt is only going
Yeah,
up.
but I would
And
say the
so,
Ponzi scheme's the problem, not the population. Like
I
you
mean, it's
cannot.
not.
This is a big thing for me. I'm sorry, but
No.
like
Listen. No,
South
I need
Korea
you.
is smaller than Cuba land wise. It's the size of Iceland. Iceland has 300,000 people. South Korea has 51 million people. How many more
Yes.
babies do you want to pack on this
But
little landmass?
let me explain it to you in a way where you can understand my analogy. You said Ponzi scheme. Ponzi schemes are typically like pyramid schemes, right? The more people at the bottom, the richer the people at the top can be, right? But in societies right now where you have the ups, what you're seeing is like basically an upside down triangle. What happens when the Ponzi scheme cannot support itself? That whole pyramid just like falls apart. And essentially, that's what I'm saying about the fertility rate being low, exacerbating the problem because of the fact that there are less people to exploit on the lower end in terms of, it being run like a Ponzi scheme. Like a
But
lot of those
ending the
economies.
Ponzi scheme is not a problem. Having the Ponzi scheme is the problem.
Yes,
To say our
having the
Ponzi scheme won't work unless you keep having kids, but like, yeah, well, you shouldn't have a Ponzi scheme anyway. That's what I'm saying.
exactly. And the
You can
correction
tax
is
foreign
going to
workers who will never get that back when they're older because they're going to be forced to leave. But Japan does not want a bunch of foreign workers in their nation.
Well, we
It
see
would destroy the culture.
where it's heading. Yes, the Ponzi scheme could collapse at some point, and it will probably be a good thing, but that is not like that is still going to be catastrophic on some level, and not just in Japan, around the world in general.
But I'll tell
I
you what's more catastrophic to continue to double your population. Like, what's going to happen to housing costs if you've got 300 million people living on that same island that now has 125 million? Like, if you keep going up forever, your land doesn't increase. If your
Yes,
population
that
keeps
is true.
increasing, you've got to divide your resources and especially housing among all these. The next generation's never going to be able to afford a house. Indefinite growth for the sake of growth is the same ideology as the cancer cell. There's nothing wrong with
I mean,
just sitting still. There's
no,
nothing wrong with
there's
that.
no doubt that there's no reason to chase like endless economic growth, But what I am trying to say is that Ponzi scheme has to go in some form in order for those countries to have a semblance of normality. The longer you don't allow a correction to happen, the worse it is going to be when it does happen. And
Well, I agree with the carry trade and I agree with all that, but I don't agree with fertility rate thing. I think like these people are like, oh, the birth rate. Dude, when you get 51 million people living on Cuba instead of 11, when you get the same population density as South Korea in the United States or Europe or whatever, come back and talk to me. But like your magnitude's below that. So of course you're still having kids. But like you're not
I
going
think
to.
you're misunderstanding me, though. I'm not talking about the fertility rate as a root cause problem of some sort. I'm just talking about it in the way
You
it
have fewer young
exacerbates.
people to steal money from to pay for the old people. I
I'm
understand.
just saying it exacerbates the problem with the current economic system. Yes, you're right. It is run like a Ponzi scheme, and that's the main problem. But one of the reasons why it's going to fail is because of the fact that they cannot actually physically chase growth. endlessly.
I understand all that. I'm saying there's a much greater economic problem doing the reverse and having too many kids and having a housing market like where they can't afford it and they're living with their parents into their 30s. Like that's the bigger problem. You can fix elder care, but young people should be able to have their own house. And one of the reasons they're not having children is because they don't have their own house. If people have to work until their upper 20s or 30s before they can move out and start their life, they're having kids later in life. You understand? Like it's a chicken and the egg situation. Why are people having fewer kids? Because they don't have affordable housing. That is the number one reason. And they don't have affordable housing is because you have to divide the number of houses and land by the population. It doesn't go up forever.
Yes, but this argument doesn't really work in places like Japan or China because housing is largely affordable. It is only like there hasn't been much tangible inflation in terms of property prices and values in countries.
Housing's not
like
affordable.
China.
They'll do some YouTube video saying you can get a house for this much way out in the boonies on a rice field by itself with no electricity. Houses like in Tokyo, in Osaka, in Nagoya and stuff, they're expensive. And they're and it's like, you can get a house and it's like a room with 2 tatami mats and a small sink. Like talking about a proper house that you could have kids and stuff in. Trust me, I lived there for 17 years. They don't have it. They don't.
How much? But so all those figures on how much more affordable Tokyo is than all the major, capitals that you would even want to live in, like all that is not true.
They're talking about they categorize Tokyo and Chiba as Greater Tokyo. That's why it is up with like 35 million people. That isn't actually in Tokyo City. And the housing they're talking about is like a hallway. It's talking about like you could maybe lay down here. It's not a proper house. You definitely couldn't have children in it. Like,
how much would a 2-bedroom apartment run you in Tokyo City proper?
Oh, a lot. Thousands. I mean, it's unaffordable.
Oh, wow.
And you could never have a family there. You could go out to Nara or something. There are places to live where you can get a big house. But, it'd be great for people that work from home. But like if you're tied to a business, which 90% of people are, they got to go commute in and work at a place, you can't only live but so far away. And it's packed in. It's 75% mountains. So even though the land exists, it's not usable. There's some major problems. And it's like there is a point where you've hit your optimum population given the resources and dirt that you have. And usually these island nations were expansionists. Like imagine if the British Empire all stayed in Britain. Imagine what it would look like. It didn't. Japan didn't have that. I mean, they briefly did in World War II, but they're all packed on the same island.
They don't have.
It is a major, like, there's nothing in Europe. There's no European country that has 125 million people. And that's what and Korea is even worse. You have 51 million on far less land. And it's, I said, it's the size of Iceland. Okay. Like, where are they supposed to go? They're already living on top of each other. It's the way it is. Like, I don't agree with everyone having 3 or 4 kids. Like,
no, me neither. By the way, like I was just talking about particularly Japanese economy. The thing about the Japanese economy, you have to look at it like from after the Second World War. They were completely devastated. The Korean War came, and that was a breath of life for the Japanese economy because they start manufacturing a lot of things for the American war effort, and that helped them. And then they went into a period of like 30 to 40 years of crazy economic growth. So their population was multiplying tremendously. They were achieving higher and higher standards of living. And then
the other thing is the war industry lost, so they gave peace a chance. And Japan makes finished products. And the reason is they're kind of forced to. You're not going to out dollar store China. You're just not.
Yeah. I mean, but you see, the thing is, what people don't know is that Japan was a victim of a targeted American attack. The Americans were very afraid of Japan's crazy economic growth. It almost seemed like the Japanese economy at the time was catching up with the American one. That they sent Kissinger to open up China, and essentially all that decline that we saw in Japan happened the graphs are insane. When you look at the graphs of like the Chinese economy and Japanese economy, there's a direct inverse relationship between the two. It's unmistakable. And it's clear because the Americans had some sort of paranoia, especially after what happened in the Second World War and
Well,
stuff.
Japan was wiping out their auto industry. I mean, Japanese cars are just better, still are. But Japan only can make finished goods. Like, you can't out dollar store China. So you can't just have cheap stuff. They can't sell resources. They import 99% of their fossil fuels. They don't have like a super good like Russia or Canada can just sell oil or sell timber or stuff. They can only take things. They have to have an educated society and make finished products like cars and cameras and complex things that can't easily be copied.
Yes,
and sell them all over the world.
This is exactly
so that's hard to maintain.
Yes, this is exactly what I think the Japanese economy is going to be a lead indicator for the global economy, because they are so reliant on those very complex supply chains that span all those different continents to get all those parts, and you see the disruption all over the place. It's not just the oil, it's the products that you get out of those oil, the plastics, the all sorts of things. You need lithium, you need just all sorts of rare earth metals that are all over the world, in Latin America and Africa, and the supply chains are getting disrupted in the most critical places.
You also need to be able to refine them. That's the real supply chain problem with rare earth is not obtaining the rare earth. It's being able to refine them after you get them.
Exactly. And this is by the way what we see. Like, even when oil flooded the market,
there's only 4 places that can do it. It's almost all Taiwan, the Netherlands, South Korea, and Japan. In South Korea and Japan, you're only talking about like 1 or 5% max. The rest is all Thailand and a little bit Netherlands. No one else can do it at all.
Yeah. I mean,
this
is the other funny thing that people only realized when the MOU happened, and then suddenly you had tens of millions of barrels of oil coming into the market, right? That depressed the raw oil prices, but when you looked at the refined products, the prices actually stayed pretty much the same. Why? Because refiner capacities are the bottleneck here. What's the point of having all that oil now if you don't have the refining capacity? Because you have a lot of refineries that are out of business. The Russians have...
And it's like, why do we have to talk about this? Because Israel needed a war with Iran. They're holding the world economy hostage for their fantasy of like just slaughtering people and having greater Israel. It's not in anybody's interest to have this war.
Yes.
And the Gulf states wait. Who's the biggest loser in this war so far? Who would you say?
Who is the biggest loser?
Don't say girls' school. Like, who's the biggest loser of all the nations?
I mean, it depends on the way you look. In terms of like the Gulf countries, I'm not optimistic about their future. I think they're going to be gone in a relatively short amount of time, because they're just not going to be around. The fishery itself is not going to be around. I don't know, maybe on a larger scale, you could say America, which pretty much had the whole world, I mean, if you think about America at the beginning of the 21st century, before the Jewish terrorist attacks on 9/11, it had a surplus in its budget. It was slated to like pay off its national debt in a certain amount of years. Its economy was booming. It looked like the stars were truly the limit, and there was no power whatsoever that was anywhere close to America. And then we get into all those desert wars, and we are tens of trillions of dollars in debt, fighting those wars, sending our children to die. And for what? Is there any economic benefit? Our kids are going to have a lower standard of living than ours. They're going to have more dysfunctional societies and all of that. For those wars, we could be colonizing, the solar system. But no, we have to go babysit Jews around the fucking world, because it's not enough that they just completely occupy our country and they subvert our culture and all those things. And so on a bigger scale, I think humanity is the loser of all of this. It was completely unnecessary, and it just gotten to the point that we have to straight up talk about like what's causing all of this, because it impacts us. You can no longer be an apolitical person.
That's right.
In this day and age.
I was looking at it too narrow. I was just going to say maybe Bahrain's the biggest loser, but like I was just looking at like physical destruction, but as a whole, you're right. It's America. America's lost the most, given the position it had and what it has now. Its military, as the kids would say, its aura has been drained. Their capacity to wage war is significantly decreased. They're out of interceptors. They're out of standoff munitions. They can't open the strait. They've lost a lot of face. They gained absolutely nothing. And people are now in America realizing that we're Israel's bitch. They get it. They're starting to see this is Israel's war. And they're starting to listen to people say, both Iraq wars were Israel's war. Syria was Israel's war. We're doing this.
Libya
for
was
AIPAC.
Israel's war.
Yeah. They stated it in their own policy papers. Pat Buchanan used to say the road to Damascus leads through Baghdad. You take out Iraq and
I
Syria.
just don't know why we get called anti-Semites for literally saying what they say. Like, it always blew my mind.
I'm quoting their policy paper. Truth is anti-Semitic. That's what it is. Truth is anti-Semitic.
Yeah, I mean, God forbid, by the way, you quote like Truman, that like what he said about them in his diaries, like about how like neither Hitler nor Stalin, and the Jews have nothing on neither Hitler nor Stalin when it comes to brutality and all that. And that's the president who led America through a part of the Second World War. And it's funny, like they're hated by all those. You would just, if you quote them, all those people who are beloved in terms of the story of Israel coming into being, you get called an anti-Semite. It's like, I just read, like I'm just a narrator. What are you talking about?
One day I'm just gonna read the Old Testament to people. I'm going to say it's the Quran and get them all mad. Like, this is the Torah. I don't mind America falling off a cliff. Like, it'll survive. It just needs a divorce from Israel. It's like a battered wife that keeps coming back and be like, I know he loves me.
but what the hell at this point? Okay, they might give it a final hurrah and they might try and destroy those power plants and stuff. And maybe Trump will just be like, okay, mission accomplished, and he will just fucking leave after having like really done nothing but destroy that entire region, on which a large part of America's economy actually depends. Because I'm not even talking about, a lot of people get obsessed with the thing about the petrodollars and shit, but those Gulf countries, each of them have massive sovereign wealth funds. And America milks them to just pour more and more money into like the American stock market and assets and all those things. And like it is going to be a tragic loss for America when those countries are bankrupt. Because
the excess wealth ends because the oil trade ends, the investments end with them.
Yeah, and then what happens when the oil when they can't sell oil, they're gonna have to sell them stonks. They're gonna have to sell them assets. What happens when that happens? Like we're talking about, we are amidst a whole bunch of different speculative bubbles, the largest being the AI tech bubble, which is largely dependent on rare earth metals. It's largely dependent on energy. Energy is the most important.
It's going to make .com seem like nothing.
It is exactly. And that's where I see it headed. And it's gonna, right now, those who think they can be apolitical, they're gonna discover how much hate they have in their hearts when they're going through all of this, and when they realize how much love we had for them as we trying to warn them this entire time.
It's like that line from Tool that when the rivers overflow and they're just dumbfounded and running around. Like, the people who don't see it coming.
Exactly.
Because they got their head in the sand.
Exactly.
They're looking.
just focus on your career. You might get fired. Like, be quiet. There is not going to be an economy. Like, we might even. People have no clue. I hope this catastrophe does not happen. I really hope like everything goes well and Iran gets an acceptable deal that it can take, and that Israel gets cocked. To where like they start behaving like humans and they stop killing and raping children for like 10 minutes. I hope all that happens. But I'm not certain. It doesn't look like it's heading in that direction. It looks like the bubble is going to burst and there's going to be like a global economic catastrophe. And, the good thing is Israel wouldn't be around for too long in such a situation where the U.S. empire is completely bankrupt and cannot defend them, because literally, no matter how much money they can print, they cannot print like THAAD interceptors and PAC-3 missiles and all that shit. Like, unfortunately,
Yeah, it's
you can't
irreplaceable.
dollars. Yeah,
It's not about the cost. It's like physically you can't make them.
and
But
then
you got
also,
all these people following around the Zioslap avatar like clavicular. Just
yeah,
absolute trash.
and then, by the way, like, even you mentioned something important, like they do have dumb bombs that they can add those JDAM kits to and maybe bomb for another year or 2 years. Yes, that's true, but then another bottleneck emerges, and it's the serviceability rate of your jets. If you look at the American jets, the F-35s, the F-16s, all that stuff, they're at right now, they have gone down to about a 25% serviceability rate. And you are now flying those jets from further out areas, and you are flying those air refuelers from further out areas. So you don't have the same offensive capability. It's getting degraded day by day, and you're having to put your aircraft carriers further and further away. You are relying on less and less air bases closer to Iran. You're going to have to put even more maintenance into those planes, and it's only going to go down. They cannot sustain a year-long bombing campaign, with all those factors. This is not America with the vitality.
Twitter won't let you talk
Nine-
about that. It's just going to fill your feed with Jewish Barbie.
Yeah, like, you're not gonna win a
Jewish
war.
Barbie
with
got
those
choked on the street.
bombers.
Oh my. Jewish Barbie OD'd in a club. Oh my. Jewish Barbie kissed the wall. Disgusting.
Yeah.
But like the goy slap is there because the goys eat it.
It's so funny. We look at how wrong all this could go, and we see the many different ways it would go catastrophically wrong. But like, we wouldn't have to be dealing with any of this if Trump could just tell a bunch of Jews no. That's all he has
can't,
to
because
say.
he's an Epstein man.
He is.
He raped Katie Johnson, a 13-year-old, forced her to suck his dick, punched her in the eye, threw some money on the bed. I know Fuentes thinks that's based. I don't. Not selling Epstein quarter zips, do the opposite. Sell the crime map.
Yeah, he's just a LARPer, constantly trying to pick fights with people. He just wants attention. Listen, I do admire certain things about him. I like how fluent he is at delivering all the points that he does, and oftentimes he does it in a very refreshing way. But the issue is that it almost feels like he's just in the whole thing.
Quarter Jew DNA makes you a good order.
Yeah, I mean, it just feels like an attention whore. It doesn't feel like he can maintain like real decent friendships for long.
Nah, they just create flame wars because it gives them attention.
Yeah, I think that's probably
his
why
divorce was sneaky. It's like, why do I even know this crap? Like, because it's just shoved in your face. I block the accounts. Like, every time I see a collab, sneaky, whatever, all the affiliate thing, I just block, and there's just more the next day. They want you concentrated on just absolute asinine, pointless, he said, she said bullshit.
It's
like what I want in my feed: Ray McGovern, Larry Johnson, like people that talk about the war. It's never there. I have to go. If I want to see something from Danny McAdams, I got to go to his page. If I want to see something from like any of these people, Colonel Wilkerson, I got to go find it. It never just end up, even though that's what I interact with.
Dude, you just made me realize
the Nikita algorithm has just killed Twitter, and I'm not allowed on anything else.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, I'm grateful for at least, like, you don't get suspended every day on Twitter like you used to. Like that is, I guess.
Oh yeah, it's better than Dorsey. At least I'm there.
Dude, but the algorithm, as you said, dude, that Nikita Beer guy definitely is playing around with it, dude. The algorithm is so terrible. I'm tired of seeing Jews all over my Twitter. I'm tired of just seeing all the influencers flop, dude. Like, I don't give a fuck about like a clavicular, or what's the name of that other like very thin, like sickly Indian kid from Texas?
Is it Neon?
Neon. Dude, who are those clowns? And why there is nothing I can ever learn from someone like Aiden Ross or Neon or whatever. Why are they all over the fucking place?
Because the algorithm wants you to stay stupid.
Go slow, pay, gamble, kids get into gambling, OnlyFans.
Mm-hmm. That's what they're pushing.
Way more problems require way more solutions.
Get plastic surgery and learn to gamble. Like,
Yeah,
who
and
runs those industries?
I cannot believe that a man will like freaking do a nose job and just like talk about it and shit. Like that
And
is
still
so
have an ugly nose. It looks like a pig. What's
yeah.
the white fresh and fit? I think it's called whatever. You know, we've all
Oh,
seen,
yeah.
everybody in the audience knows what I'm talking about because it's been shoved down your throat.
Yeah.
It's inevitable. It just comes. It's just
Dude, it's
there.
so funny that yeah, now that you mentioned that whatever podcast, like those, Christian slash I don't know if some of them are Jews or whatever, but they will get you all those OnlyFans prostitute and like own them and shit. And it's like, dude, you're giving them they get on those shows because they're gonna get more subscribers.
Yeah.
And it's all a performative bullshit, dude. Like it's so pathetic. It's just
What's funny is like these show hosts, they'll trash on the hoe the minute the camera's off. They're trying to hook up with them. Like it's just a pretext to surround himself with whores. The whores get a big audience so they can collect more simps. And the hosts, like they'll verbally say it's wrong, but then continue to engage in it. None of them are married. None of them have kids, not on purpose at least. It's all just performative nonsense.
Yeah, it does. Honestly, I think everything happens for a reason. I think the reason why we're seeing this Iran war go to, that accelerated conclusion. I think it's just about time that there's a correction for all this bullshit. All this degeneracy, all this goy slop just being fed.
It's almost too good to be true. You saw like Lebanon, Syria, Gaza, like
yes, and
Iraq,
this is why I have to say a
L.
disclaimer. It is not going to be a good time. Like, don't be deluded whatsoever about that. It's gonna be catastrophic, very disruptive. I think it's going to be like a Bronze Age collapse type event. I think it's going to be a Silicon Age collapse. I that's what I personally think. I think that there are going to be major population corrections, especially in places like Southeast Asia. India. Like, something's got to give. Those corrections are going to happen. And
I mean, 2/3 of the place doesn't use a toilet already. I don't know how far they could fall.
Yeah, I mean they can't fall, but like they won't even be able to afford rice. Is the point? So
and they're gonna all flood into Europe. You know what? Europe will take them.
Perhaps. I mean, the Egyptian. There are so many different sort. It's gonna be. My point is, it's not going to be a good time. I think in many ways.
I think you meant South Asia, by the way. Southeast Asia is different.
Yes, yeah, I meant yeah, I did mean South Asia. I was more so thinking like places like Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, but even beyond them, like Nigeria and whatnot. But it's not going to be a good event. Like I think we're gonna lose on a lot of conveniences and stuff. But
I'm bring back the Persian Empire. I'm for Greater Iran. Just to absorb, like Kuwait should be part of Greater Iraq. Just take the UAE and Bahrain for yourselves. That's the dream. Mom, Israel.
It's so funny, dude. At the end of it, maybe only the Yemenis and the Iranians will have their quality of life improved. Like once it's all done, just because of the fact they were strangled for decades. And it's not gonna get any worse. They're already like cut off like a lot of the global supply chains and all that crap. So there's a lot of upside for them potentially. But for the rest of the world, I think it's gonna look ugly. But you know what? If that's the price we gotta pay to be done with Israel and to be liberated from Jewish occupation, then so be it. I would gladly clean toilets with my tongue if I have to.
I will pay $60 at the pump with a smile if I know Tel Aviv's on fire.
Yeah, my like gladly, I'll pay $1,000. I wish I could send them money to send more drones. I wish I could finance that shit.
I want ladybug painted drones just to throw salt in the wound. They look at the debris and it's got a ladybug pattern. They're like, what's that about? Like,
Yeah, this is what you sacrifice for.
You're being run by Epstein pedophiles. That's who you're paying taxes to and going to war for. It's the same in the UK with Peter Mandelson and the rest of it. They look the other way for Jimmy Savile. Like, it is just a despotic regime with bad food. Yeah, at least America's got good food. Well, they poison half of it. So you're poor. You can only afford the corn syrup from Walmart. You end up being 300 pounds. But
You saw what they're you see what they're doing right now in Morocco, right? With Spain and whatnot. Like that was
they did a pink drone, didn't they?
They did what?
They made a pink one. They need a ladybug pattern. If you're out there, if I see a ladybug, like a black and red, drone, make a ladybug Karam Shop 4, although I don't think there's much debris left of those. But a ladybug drone, guys. Come on, get on it. Send it for Lindsay. Do it for the man.
That's a if you can talk to one of them Iranians, like propose that idea. What's his name?
They're in chat right now, so yeah. Do it, guys. Ladybug, a swarm of ladybugs. Boom. Every 11th, do a ladybug drone.
Man, I'm just so proud of the Iranians, and like never been to Iran. I've had some Iranian friends in the past, but to be honest, it's just it's a breath of fresh air to just see some nation with a backbone.
Is it true they have a new missile called the Coin Clipper?
That'd be a base. That's a good idea. Like any IRGC officers listening to this, please.
Ladybug Lego vid, someone just said. There you go. I have a feeling that's about to happen when I get off stream.
Dude, that'd be amazing.
I want a real one, not just Lego. I want a ladybug painted Persian lawnmower. The Sahid, bam, and it's like little pieces of freaking ladybug.
We will kill the idea of Dubai. Man, that shit, when I heard that, I literally jizzed. Like, that was just beautiful. There is no better feeling in the world than when you wake up.
The Japanese are calling Dubai.
What are they calling it?
Good Dubai.
That is so funny. I'm gonna use
it only works in that language. Good Dubai.
Yeah. It's so funny. Like, I actually got a job offer recently, and they were like, "Would you wanna work in one of our branches, like in the Gulf, like Qatar or Dubai or whatever?" I told them like those countries aren't gonna exist for too long, and they looked at me and they laughed and they said like, "You're tripping. Like, what do you mean?" And they just don't see. They just don't understand.
They didn't get it.
You have to understand the world mechanically, because that, like, it does not take a genius to read into all those things, really. 1 + 1 is going to equal 2. You have a population of 10 million people. You're a Gulf country A. You import 80% of your water. You have a desalination plant that just supports, like, it's very expensive to run, and it's subsidized heavily, and it's very, very exposed. Like, it could easily get targeted. You have those.
Dave Rubin speaks out against human trafficking, then buys a baby.
That is disgusting. I don't know why.
That is the dumbest. Like, he did the thing where you like argue with a bunch of college kids and got wrecked by every single one of them. Like, he didn't have facts at all.
Yeah, because dude, he's retarded. Dude, so many of those Jews are astroturfed, and they're completely retarded. Like
Dave Rubin, he's a high IQ Jew with money. He opens his mouth like, this guy is dumber than Rumsfeld. He's like
or Lex Friedman.
Well, yeah, he's like Doug Feith level stupid. I'll say it.
Yeah,
I think he's
Lex Friedman is another one of those complete morons.
Oh,
he's just so stupid, and it's like, why are you even think? Just because you're a Jew,
you're there, the algorithm will push it.
Yeah, exactly, and they just have that type of ecosystem, and they just
kosher.
magnify. They just magnify all that disgusting shit. And
Dave
now
Rubin is literally a retarded Jew faggot. He hit the trifecta. He's a retarded Jew faggot.
dude. Or Bill Maher. Bill Maher is talentless. The guy is not even funny. And you know, and by the way, what I do appreciate about Bill Maher is he killed the idea of the atheist Jew. Like there is just no such thing. You know, the
It's
Jew
an
ultimately,
oxymoron. He
dude,
believes it.
dude, the Jew ultimately, whether he's an atheist or religious Jew, he ultimately worships the Jew. You know, like even if you're a Jew who
Well,
believes
they'll claim to be they're claimed to be
believe-
atheists, but they still
Yeah.
believe in King David and Solomon like his history. I'm like,
I mean because it's not contradictory. Like being a Jewish theist is not contradictory to being a Jewish atheist, because like a Jewish theist believes that God exists to serve him. You read it all over the Torah and the Talmud. You know, they believe that like God quite literally like cries when they don't listen to him, and he's gonna give them heaven that's
they
just
might
for
be
them.
less
He's gonna-
religious, but they're religious. It's like saying you don't believe in Harry Potter,
yes,
but you still believe in Hogwarts.
my
You still believe in
idea is
Hogwarts. You know,
yeah, but
you're
my
not.
idea is, do you even essentially believe in God if you think God is below you? You know, like maybe the atheist Jew still puts the Jew above everyone else. You know, and so does
The whole
religious
concept of
Jew.
a Jew goes back to a mythological bloodline of a character named Jacob that wrestled with an angel or wrestled with God. You can't be an atheist and acknowledge Jewishness. It's just like it's a made up thing. If you're going to think, well, that was their land thousands of years ago, and you're basing that on the bullshit from the book of Daniel and Joshua and stuff, like you're still religious because you're believing in a religious history. It's like believing in King Arthur. There was no Merlin or Lancelot or Arthur or Camelot. Like that's all crap. So if you're like, well, I don't believe in Merlin, but you still believe in the rest of the shit, you're still like a believer. You can't call yourself an atheist, because an atheist would take the historical approach and be like, yeah, Moses is made up. There was no Exodus. This is what historians and archaeologists believe. Like these are made up stories that get historized within a religion believed by Jews and Christians and stuff. But other people, no, these are Second Temple Judas that wrote this shit in around 70 AD, backtracking, saying, oh, we're thousands of years old. No, you weren't. The Hebrew are just, all it means is wanderers. It was the exiles and lepers and stuff and bandits and thieves that got kicked out of the cities.
You know
what is Hebrew?
What is particularly interesting about Jews, is even historically speaking, it seems like the radicalism is mostly on the popular level, like in terms of like the general population. You know, like you will read about King Herod, like all the great leader. I mean, King Herod, by the way, to my surprise, turned out to be actually descended from a Greek lineage. Like I think his parents converted. He was a great leader, but you will notice like this trend where the actual clergy and the leaders try to moderate the population. Hey, we can't just go against the Roman Empire right now. Hey, we cannot attack nearby kingdoms and just force circumcise them and shit. And even today, it's so funny how they try to scapegoat people like Netanyahu and Smotrich as those extremists when they might be actually less radical than the average Israeli. You know, and you will notice it even in the language.
Less radical than Ben Gvir.
Yeah, dude, the opposition is actually like it's talking a lot more hawkish than even Netanyahu. Like this is
they don't like Netanyahu because he's not bloodthirsty enough.
Yeah, dude, they are trying to compete for the Israeli for their population support, but by showing who's a bigger mass murderer, a bigger rapist, and bigger all those things. So all those retards who talk about the problem with Israel is just the government, it's just those certain radical leaders that somehow got into power. No, it's always been the case that historically speaking, the Jews in the general population are very radical. And this is why you see they have a greater propensity to join those more radical, like leftist groups or right-wing groups, whatever it is. They just have a greater propensity to do that. I don't know why. I don't know if it's like a psychological thing, if they're driven by a certain curse, laid on them by divine power, or if it's just like genes. I have no freaking clue, but that ethno-narcissism is actually a major liability for them, because right now they might feel
I think it's from a natural filter. Like any sane, moral person would just leave the faith. The faith is telling them to be immoral. They would say, I don't agree with this and leave. And then because you have a rule within the faith that they have to marry each other, so you just get like the nastiest, most immoral people breeding with each other over and over again. And anytime one arises that's like, I don't like this, they leave the tribe and go marry a Muslim or Christian, or they become an adult or whatever. And so they're out. So within that group, it just metastasizes. It gets worse and worse and worse. And they inbreed with each other. That's why they got all the fucked up features with the nose and ears and stuff, because they're like a bunch of cousin fucking going on. And like any moral person will leave the faith. So the faith like ensures it's a freak magnet. You get people who don't have remorse or empathy that could kill a child and be like, it's Amalek, whatever. Like that's all that remains, because that's required in their belief system. And so you're pushing out anybody with any moral fabric. And the end result is Israelis.
Yes.
It's not genetic per se. It's kind of like breeds a dog. Like you made him that way by selectively breeding the worst people together over and over again. And you end up with the modern Jew.
Yeah, and it certainly didn't help that they just formed insular communities everywhere. Like they didn't quite. It would have benefited them a little bit to actually assimilate in some societies. Like it just always seemed like they are pretty much incapable of assimilating. And it's interesting. Like I think the first European example of a leader trying to assimilate them might have been Napoleon. And he thought maybe, and Napoleon was a great administrator, and he thought maybe that he could actually solve this problem, and if he includes them in society and all that stuff, they will just become normal, non-exploitative people, that don't just deal in the dark world of like all those criminal enterprises.
No such thing as a French Jew, just a Jew that lives in France.
Yeah, and it's funny. Then, like, I think it was like 50, 60 years later, it might have been Bismarck who just naturalizes them and blah blah blah, and tries to go tackle this problem from there. And then within 50 years, they pretty much ruined Germany. They went from not appearing anywhere in Germany to like owning the press over there, to owning.
Give us 20 years, we'll own your media and destroy your country.
Yeah, it's like
a quote from a dancing Israeli.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, in order for society to be a fair playing field, you have to have everyone abide by some sort of moral framework. It has to be like culturally intertwined with your national identity.
Europeans are all about law and order, and Jews are all about legal loopholes.
Exactly. So that will naturally be
relationship.
Exactly. So you cannot really include them in society without actually resolving that problem. And the issue is that you can't resolve that problem by including them in society. So there ultimately has to be another solution. And to be honest, this drives you to the next point, that it's very clear that a lot of the European and Western support that came for Israel, especially in the early stages of the Zionist project, is literally to just get rid of those people from their society. Like they just literally wanted to, Germans talk a lot about historic responsibility, and they will never sanction Israel because of, their historic responsibility. To me, it sounds like they just don't want those Jews back, to be honest.
They're also just consistently on the wrong side of history.
Yeah.
You could correct some German guilt by opposing modern day Israel, but they do the opposite. They're just always making the wrong choice. But we're off top. We did the Iran update, the Fauci update, a little bit of Epstein update. I'm satisfied with this one. We'll do it again. Thanks everybody for listening on Substack. This recording will be on Substack and only on Substack. And I will leave you with some obnoxious commercial of mine. Let me think which one. How about another Don't Israel? Do you want to do phones or glasses? You can choose.
Are you asking me or the audience?
I'll ask you. Or juice. Any of the juice, glasses, or phone?
Let's see glasses. I don't think I saw that.
You haven't seen the glasses? All right.
Hey, don't Israel my glasses.
No. God gave them to me.
Those are mine. Give
God
them
said
back.
it's mine. God said it's mine. Persecution. 6 million. Help me, America. Help me, America. Well, if I didn't do it, someone else would.
And if I don't steal it, someone else is going to steal it.
I was in the shop getting my bagels, just using my phone, and this Palestinian terrorist, 3 times my size, wielding a knife, came out of nowhere, broke my arm, tried to take the phone that God gave to me.
Allah Akbar! Allah Akbar!
A little inside information. What's funny is it wasn't on purpose, but I ended up taking those glasses. I forgot they were just like hanging on my shirt after the video. And I was trying to get back to Japan and I couldn't. I got tested positive for COVID. So I just went to Florida and I just ended up with those glasses for like a year and a half.
Oh, you are just such a good actor, I guess. You're
Yeah, I really Israeled them.
You just, you channeled that Jew.
She never got them back. I just lost them after a year and a half. So yeah, those are mine. They're promised to me 3,000 years ago.
Honestly, it's pretty cool that you did all those skits. They're funny.
We got a bunch. We're gonna record some more shortly. August next month. We're gonna be doing. I guess that's us.
But by the way, how often do you come stateside?
Not often, but this year I was in Vegas this month, and I'm going to North Carolina next month. But that's rare. I usually just go maybe once a year. But
like,
I've
are you
racked up
mostly
so many
going
frequent
for, like,
flyer miles. I'm like, well, you got to use them. So.
Oh,
I'm
so
doing it.
are you mostly do you mostly come here for like media appearances?
Man, I have family that lives in America. That's where I'm from. So I go and I don't just ignore them forever. But like I try and kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Like I'll do activism, for lack of a better word, while I'm seeing family and bringing the kids around in English and stuff. That's it. I mean, we just travel within Korea. Sometimes go back to Japan. Like it's better, it's cheaper, it's closer. Like why go to America for any reason?
Yeah,
Other than
honestly,
I have relatives there.
if
Yeah,
I lived
I mean-
all the way there, I would rarely come to the States. I mean, just so far, I don't even like doing flights
It's-
like anywhere far.
It's miserable. To the East Coast, that's a 15-hour flight.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Shoot me now.
I remember Dubai used to be, when I would do that flight, it was like 13, 14 hours. And it's strange because when I was a kid, I loved flying. And like, it's almost like the moment I turned 18, it just became such a terrible.
The taller
feeling.
you are, the more uncomfortable it gets.
Yeah.
But here's a gratuitous counter commercial, and that's it. We're out.
On a rooftop in Tehran. You know what this means? This is outrageous. Hand me at once. Take him to the edge. Grab his ankles. No, stop! You can't do this! Throw the old faggot off the roof head first. No, Nuke, no!
No! Help me! It burns! It burns! It burns!
I can't wait to see if it fits. I named her Miss Sassy. She's my little pride and joy. Let's see if it slides right into place.
99% sure.
You know his
That's true.
Tijuana hamster story with it.
Oh my God, what's that?
I wonder if they liberated the hamsters from his house. Lindsey Graham had his own theme music at truck stops. He got his own entrance music.
Yeah, I feel bad for those hamsters who live for him.
Guy rode a bike with no seat. He ate a popsicle without his hands. Or my favorite, Lindsey Graham could churn butter without his hands.
You got the Lindsey Graham material.
Dude's gayer than cum on a mustache. He's queer as a football bat.
He's like the gayest guy I've ever seen. Anyways,
he's gayer than a cock flavored lollipop.
All right,
the G and Lady G stood for.
Ladybugs. Oh, I've never heard that thing.
God, man,
that's so stuck in my head. I'm just like disgusted now.
There's some.
Thanks,
I hope
Ryan.
it's AI. Yeah, you're welcome. Good riddance. May you rest in hell. Piece of crap, Lindsey Graham.
I just want to say, what the fuck did I just watch? That was insane.
That was live. That was a live camera of the liberation of hamsters out of his house. The FBI did go to his house. Like, what are you doing? They got to get rid of incriminating evidence.
Yeah, I mean, dude, what the fuck are they gonna find like amidst the piles of fucking disgusting, like sticky dildos?
I don't know. I'm gonna see if it fits. I named it Miss Sassy. For Israel. Oh, it was a warmonger convention at his funeral, and they actually said things like Lindsey Graham never saw a war he didn't love, and thought that was funny. Oh yeah, bomb another girls' school. That'll get him off. He didn't like women anyway. Lindsey Graham, little Christian Zionist.